foreign intervention, the revolutionaries abolished the monarchy, and the French Republic was born. In November, the king's secret correspondence was discovered, providing damning evidence of his attempts to stall the revolution. His trial was now a certainty. Since childhood, he had studied English history. In his last days, he read again the life of Charles I, another king who had fallen victim to revolution. When Louis was taken away to trial, Marie Antoinette knew what awaited him. Louis was executed on the 21st of January, 1793. Alone in the Temple, Marie Antoinette mourned the death of a man whose destiny she had shared for over 20 years. Now she lived only for her son. For her, he was Louis XVII. Fersen was still trying to rally support for her cause, but this time there was to be no escape. On the 1st of July, her young son was taken from her without warning and held in another part of the temple. It was a cruel blow. Her only pleasure was to catch a glimpse of him playing in the yard. When a revolutionary leader, Marat, was murdered in his bath, the Paris mob demanded revenge. The Queen was transferred to the Conciergerie, the grim prison known to be the last staging post before the guillotine. She must have known the end was close, but she was to spend 70 days in her tiny cell.
She entered a world which to her was almost unimaginable, and behaved better than she had ever behaved at any time in her life. Being kept away from any opportunity for self-indulgence, the streak of courage, which was a very important part of her character, suddenly came to the fore.
The revolutionary leaders debated whether to use her as a hostage as the war turned against them. Under constant guard, she was left with only memories of those she had loved. As the strain began to tell, she fell ill, but there was to be no last-minute reprieve.
It was to propitiate the very long-standing hatred of the Parisian populace, which they bore her, rather than because she any longer had any significance. The real significance is the execution of the king.
As her trial approached, she found comfort and strength in her religion. And when she came to face her accusers, she defended herself with all the dignity of her ancestry and upbringing. She was shocked when they said her young son had accused her of incest.
The reason they can really believe in this disgusting accusation is because they've come to believe their own propaganda. And because Louis was perceived as weak, she suddenly is this sort of monster, this sort of sexual pervert.
But the former queen was equal to the attack. With a dramatic appeal to all the mothers in the room, she won over even the most hostile spectators. The verdict, which came at 3 in the morning, had never been in doubt. She was allowed to write one last letter. She asked that her son be forgiven and that he should never seek to avenge his parents' death. Finally, she asked to be remembered to her loved ones.
Let them know that to the very last, they were always in my mind.
Early in the morning of the 16th of October, 1793, Sanson, the executioner, prepared Marie Antoinette for the guillotine. Ahead of her lay a daunting journey through the crowded streets of Paris. Prison had taken its toll. Only 37, she now looked twice her age. But her pride did not desert her at the end.
As she walked up the first step, her hands still tied behind her back, and it's awkward to move like that. She stepped by accident on the foot of the executioner, and she stopped and turned to him and said, "Monsieur, I beg your pardon, I did not do it on purpose." That's manners, and that's courage.
The bloody head of Marie Antoinette was displayed to the cheering Parisians. They had taken their final revenge on the Austrian, who had once been Queen of France.
The views that historians have taken of Marie Antoinette have very much depended on their views of the revolution. Those who are anti-revolutionary, those who feel it was unnecessary, a tragic deviation, they take the line that she's a tragic heroine, someone caught up in big circumstances beyond her control, and she suffered the consequences of that. If on the other hand, you think the revolution is a good thing, is desirable, is the triumph of certain very important principles of liberty and equality and many of the values which the 20th century treasures, then you would tend to see her as a frivolous meddler.
Though for much of her life, Marie Antoinette was her own worst enemy, she had a tragic destiny. Just before he died, her husband Louis acknowledged,
Marie Antoinette arrived at Versailles as a child, and she had no one to help her.
After the executions of Marie Antoinette and King Louis XVI, their son Louis Charles became king in title only. Historic evidence indicates that he died in prison 2 years later. There have been rumors that in fact he escaped and was replaced on the throne with another boy. We don't really know.